What's going on, guys? Happy first day of impeachment. So, today was definitely interesting. I live streamed a little bit of the impeachment, but to be honest, I didn't really watch too many of the arguments. I figured I would just break some of it down and get the best clips and then make a little highlight video for you guys, and that's what we're going to do right here now. And definitely the story of the day was Trump's lawyers were just god-awful. It was like a bad open mic night. Now, the Democrats did make good arguments, and I think that helped in how bad the Republicans did, or the Trump's lawyers did, and they even kind of said as much during their presentation. But the Democrats opened with a 9-minute long kind of timeline breakdown of the events that happened on the 6th, and Trump's tweets and everything, and why they believe that he incited the whole thing. And really, the Trump's lawyers just had no rebuttal for it, and they just kind of shot from the hip and just went up there and said a bunch of words the whole time. But we'll start with a few things from the Democrat side, but the big story on this is Trump's reaction, Republicans' reaction, and just Trump's lawyers, because it was pretty interesting. But we'll start with Jamie Raskin's comments here.
President Trump may not know a lot about the framers, but they certainly knew a lot about him. Given the framers' intense focus on danger to elections and the peaceful transfer of power, it is inconceivable that they designed impeachment to be a dead letter in the president's final days in office, when opportunities to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power would be most tempting and most dangerous, as we just saw. Thus, as a matter of history and original understanding, there is no merit to President Trump's claim that he can incite an insurrection and then insist weeks later that the Senate lacks the power to even hear evidence at a trial, to even hold a trial.
And so that was basically the arguments today, and that's why I didn't cover a lot of the arguments today. I didn't realize Trump's lawyers were going to be such a shit show. But trying to say that you cannot impeach a president just because he's out of office now is just absolutely absurd. And on top of that, he was actually impeached while he was still in office. So to say he just gets out on the conviction trial is absolutely insane. And it has no legal standing. It's not unconstitutional to still impeach him. So today was just kind of pointless, especially as bad as Trump's lawyers ended up being. But then Jamie Raskin, he got a little emotional. He talked about, he gave a very powerful opening speech. He was the first one to give statements, and this is kind of what he ended on.
2 officers have taken their own lives. Senators, this cannot be our future. This cannot be the future of America. We cannot have presidents inciting and mobilizing mob violence against our government and our institutions because they refuse to accept the will of the people under the Constitution of the United States. Much less can we create a new January exception in our precious, beloved Constitution that prior generations have died for and fought for, so that corrupt presidents have several weeks to get away with whatever it is they want to do. History does not support a January exception in any way, so why would we invent one for the future? We close, Mr. President.
And he's absolutely 100% right. There's no cutoff date. The president just doesn't get to do whatever he wants the last couple of weeks he's in office. That's just not how things work. It was a dumb argument to start with, and really, them even having to try and make that argument to the country on live TV just made them look bad, because they had no good argument, especially with no time to prepare and trying to present these bullshit arguments. Now, there was a couple other people that spoke for the Democrats, and they gave good presentations. Jamie Raskin's was definitely the best, but definitely the highlight of the day was the Trump lawyers, so we'll get to that. And we'll start with Bruce Castor here. I don't know, man. I guess he was going for that good old Southern folksy lawyer shtick, but it just it did not land at all. And so we'll start with this video, and man, it's
don't know about off the top of my head, but Each one of them, once there was the vacuum created that the greatest deliberative bodies, the Senate of Greece sitting in Athens, the Senate of Rome, the moment that they devolved into such partisanship, it's not as though they ceased to exist. They ceased to exist as representative democracy, both replaced by totalitarianism.
As Aaron Rupar says here, I challenge you to make sense of what Bruce Castor is trying to say here. This is like the worst college lecture of all times. He just basically spoke in circles and talked about, you know, all kinds of, oh, growing up over here, I got this record player, we turned it up, remember with the needle? It was a very weird thing. Well, I guess you'll just have to see for yourself. I can't even explain it that well.
I was going to say it will, instead of floodgates, I was going to say originally it will release the whirlwind, which is a biblical reference. But I subsequently learned since I got here that that particular phrase has already been taken, so I figured I better change it to floodgates.
Does anybody know who took that? Who took that phrase and said he couldn't say it? Is that trademark? Did Trump trademark that one? Did someone in the House or the Senate say that? No one knows what he's even talking about there. And it goes on. This
saw on television the last couple of days the honorable gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Sass. I saw that he faced backlash back home because of a vote he made some weeks ago. That a political party was complaining about a decision he made as a United States Senator.
Again, remember, this is a debate on whether impeaching Trump is unconstitutional. And I don't even, what is he talking about?
You know, it's interesting because I don't want to steal the thunder from the other lawyers, but Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. And just maybe Senator Sass is on to something. You'll hear about what it is that the Nebraska courts have to say about the issue that you all are deciding this week. There seem to be some pretty smart jurists in Nebraska, and I can't believe a United States Senator doesn't know that. Saw on television.
Does anybody know what a judicial thinking place is? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a compliment. Sounds good. Judicial thinking place. Sounds like some magical land where they passed bipartisan legislation or something. Anyway, not only him, but the other guy, they have very weird water sips. I don't know what it is with the Republican Party and their lawyers not being able to sip water. Marco Rubio had the weird water sip moment. Donald Trump has had several, and now these guys are just the other guy like pats his head. It's weird. Like he's just like crushing the bottle. That was the least of his offenses today, though. And then probably the last thing Trump wanted him to do is admit defeat, and he admits Trump lost. The people already decided. My guy lost.
And the reason that I am having trouble with the argument is the American people just spoke, and they just changed administrations.
Indeed,
so in the
did.
light most favorable to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle here, their system works. The people are smart enough, in the light most favorable to them, they're smart enough to pick a new administration if they don't like the old one. And they just did. And he's down there, Pennsylvania Avenue now, probably wondering, how come none of my stuff is happening up at the Capitol?
Again, just because we changed administrations doesn't mean that you don't get to be held accountable for what you did. You, over months and months, through your actions, through your team, through everything, basically everything that you push for, and everything, all the lies you told led to this. All the things you let fester, like QAnon, by promoting them. I could point to a million things that led to this. And whatever, that's a different conversation for another day. But you do not get to get away with something you did just because you don't have your job anymore. It's not how it works. It's not how things go. And then this is the part where he just basically admits that the Democrats' argument was so good that they had to switch up their presentation, which, I mean, I guess at least he's honest.
I'll be quite frank with you. We changed what we were going to do on account that we thought that the House manager's presentation was well done. And I wanted you to know that we have responses to those things.
Just not yet.
I thought that what the first part of the case was, which was the equivalent of a motion to dismiss, was going to be about jurisdiction alone. And one of the fellows who spoke for the House managers, who's a former criminal defense attorney, seemed to suggest that there's something nefarious that we were discussing jurisdiction and trying to get the case dismissed. But this is where it happens in the case, because jurisdiction is the first thing that has to be found. We have counter arguments to everything that they raised, and you will hear them later on in the case from Mr. Van der Veen and from myself.
They have them. They just don't, they don't want to show them yet. Don't want to show that hand yet. They're going to wait till another day. They have counter arguments, though. Yeah, I don't. I just thought that was funny. Just kind of like, well, we have them, but, we'd have to switch things up because their argument was so good. So this is what we're going with today. And then he just basically says, well, why don't you just arrest Trump then? Come on, DOJ. Let's just arrest Trump if he did something wrong, which I'm sure Trump was not too happy with.
Actually think that President Trump committed a criminal offense. And let's understand, a high crime is a felony and a misdemeanor is a misdemeanor. The words haven't changed that much over the time.
I agree with those things, yes. A high crime is a high crime and a misdemeanor is a misdemeanor. Guys, spot on.
After he's out of office, you go and arrest him. So there is no opportunity where the President of the United States can run rampant in January, the end of his term, and just go away scot-free. The Department of Justice does know what to do with such people. And so far, I haven't seen any activity in that direction. And not only that, the people who...
It's about punishing him so where he cannot run again. He should not be able to hold office again if that's what he did while he was in office. I mean, we've heard these arguments a million times. I'm sure you guys have heard these arguments. And again, they just make no sense.
Stormed this building and breached it were not accused of conspiring with the president. Side of the chamber.
And that's it for him. And then, just a few with this guy. He had a few shining moments, and they really shine. First, I don't know what is going on here. Little old head tip. You ever tip your head back when you get the water? You just give it an old head tip. When your head's not quite... Does your head just not work as well when you're older? You just give it the old little head tip. And then freeze. Little tip back of the head, and that's how you do it. Is that like a good luck thing? Rubbing the head for the good luck? I don't know. But I don't understand. Why is it so hard to drink water for these guys? And that one's not. This one, I tweeted out this one. Am I just missing it here? Am I just stupid? But this makes no fucking sense to me. Or I guess maybe I'm just dumb. I mean, he's a fancy schmancy lawyer. What do I know? But I don't feel like this is a sensible thing.
Officers impeached and convicted for high crimes and misdemeanors, they shall be removed. Absolutely nothing about this rule implies, let alone requires, that former officials who can still face disqualification are immune from impeachment and conviction. That's what they say. They told you that today. In other words, so the argument goes, a president no longer holding office does not moot the entirety of remedies afforded by impeachment. This, however, also flies in the face of both the plain meaning of the text and the canons of statutory interpretation. First of all, the managers once again simply choose to ignore the text. Even in the passage that the managers cite, the word shall does, to put it mildly, imply a requirement. An imperative such that an impeachment in which removal would be impossible is invalid. Shall means shall. The Supreme Court has made clear that when a statute uses the word shall, Congress has imposed a mandatory duty upon the subject of the command, as in shall remove. Indeed, the mandatory shall normally creates an obligation impervious to judicial discretion. And wherever the Constitution commands, discretion terminates. Shall means mandatory, and shall be removed is not possible for a former officer no longer in office. Impeachment cannot apply. Now here's the...
What? Shall means shall? I'm not big-brained enough for that one. It sounded like a bunch of babbling to me. I don't think that one's gonna win him the case. I could be wrong, but so that was pretty much the highlights. There was a few others, but that's basically the highlights of what happened. And they basically got the Democrats wiped the floor with them so bad that even Republicans came out and said, yeah, they did a terrible job presenting today. One of them was Bill Cassidy. He had this to say.
I said I'd be an impartial juror. Anyone listening to those arguments, the House managers were focused, they were organized, they relied upon both precedent, the Constitution, and legal scholars. They made a compelling argument. President Trump's team were disorganized.
Now, just so you know, Bill Cassidy is definitely no centrist, moderate guy. He's pretty hard partisan, Trump guy. He's with the party almost always, all the time. So for him to say this, it was bad. He's not the worst in the party, but he's up there.
They did everything they could but to talk about the question at hand. And when they talked about it, they kind of glided over it, almost as if they were embarrassed of their arguments. Now, if I'm an impartial juror, and one side's doing a great job, and the other side's doing a terrible job on the issue at hand, as an impartial juror, I'm going to vote for the side that did the good job.
What does it mean for conviction?
I don't know. We haven't heard that yet. I'm an impartial juror.
Why do you think the Trump defense team did a terrible job?
Did you listen to it?
I did.
Okay, then it speaks for itself.
I found Castor hard to follow for sure. Other Republicans have praised Chauvin. Is that your feeling of things, or did you think that
Again,
his
if you listen to it, it speaks for itself. It was disorganized, random, had nothing. They talked about many things, but they didn't talk about the issue at hand. And so if I'm an impartial juror and I'm trying to make a decision based upon the facts as presented on this issue, then the House managers did a much better job.
I mean, and that's just true all the way around. I mean, if for you to deny that means you are just absolutely a partisan hack. If you watch today's entire impeachment trial, which I did not watch the entire thing, but I watched I'd say about 3 hours worth of it, pretty much right after I got off live stream, started watching the whole thing. But it wasn't even close. I mean, first of all, the Republicans Trump's lawyers are in just a terrible spot. They had no time to prepare. They have a shit argument that they have to make. I mean, I don't envy their position. But that said, I thought they would do a better job than what they did. I mean, they were just incoherent. Like they just went up there and shot from the hip. It made no sense. They're telling old folksy tales. Shall means shall. It was absolutely incoherent to the point where even Bill Cassidy and people like Alan Dershowitz are coming out against it. Yes, Alan Dershowitz, this creep of a guy. He might just be upset that he's not up there doing it because he's, too hot there because he's Jeffrey Epstein's buddy and he's clearly just horrible POS. But this is a little bit of what he had to say about it.
What are you making of Bruce Castor's argument
salty.
so far?
Look at
Where
him.
is he heading with this?
There is no argument. I have no idea what he's doing. I have no idea why he's saying what he's saying. You know, he's introducing himself. I'm a nice guy. I like my senators. I know my senators. Senators are great people. Come on. The American people are entitled to an argument, a constitutional argument. I suspect will be forthcoming from David Schoen. But this, just after all kinds of very strong presentations on the part of the House managers with the videotapes and the emotional speech by Congressman Raskin, my former student, you know, you get up there and you respond. We know that hard cases make bad law. I probably would have started with that. This is a hard case. This is an emotional case. He did say, and I think very appropriately, that everybody wants to take revenge when they see a horrible event that took place at the Capitol, but then he went off. I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough Alan Dershowitz. But yeah, even Alan Dershowitz understand it. Now, there is some reporting that maybe Trump's lawyers were trying to kind of kill the vibe in the room and kind of dumb everything down because the Democrats gave such a compelling case, especially Raskin. It was very emotional. It was well structured, well thought out, and just it was a very powerful speech at the end. And that was kind of hard to combat, so I think they just tried to lull everybody to sleep and maybe kind of make it more about them being goofy than what was the actual substance of the day. But with all this said, and now a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, everybody was praising Mitch McConnell because, he came out and he said that he might vote to impeach Trump, and people are acting like he was some hero, and he was getting praised all over the mainstream media. CNN, MSNBC is like, even Mitch McConnell is saying he might do it. Well, then you get to, the actual time to do that, and this is what Mr. McConnell has to say. McConnell rejects emergency session for impeachment trial. So he basically said, he's out of office now, so we can't impeach him, even though he would not open back up the Senate so they could start the trial on the 19th. So he basically ran out the clock, and he was never going to vote to impeach. It was just a bunch of bullshit to try to get some heat off of him, and that's all it ever was. He was never going to vote to impeach because he's Mitch McConnell, and he does not have a soul. But yeah, even after everything that happened today, after an amazingly presented case from the Democrats and just a complete debacle by Trump's lawyers, Mitch McConnell still thinks it's basically unconstitutional, which is ridiculous from Jump Street. But that's the argument that he went with to make his vote. Obviously, he was always going to go with, side with Trump. And then the last thing that we'll talk about is apparently Trump was very upset at how this whole thing went down today. But when you fire all your lawyers 5 days before the impeachment trial because you want them to go with a ridiculous, the election was stolen narrative in the impeachment trial, which the reason that you're getting impeached is because you kept boasting about how the election was stolen and pushing this false narrative, and that's why everything happened the way it did. That was not a good strategy, so no good lawyer is going to go with that. So you got to get bumpkins like these guys. But this is apparently the inside scoop from Miss Caitlin Collins.
Trump was very, very unhappy, especially that first lawyer, Bruce Castor, who did an awful job trying to defend the former president.
Yeah, Wolf, it's almost predictable as you were watching Bruce Castor go forward with trying to make that argument that was meandering in the first few minutes of it. As, of course, this is a limited time defense, and he wasn't really getting to the heart of the argument. And I'm now being told by two people familiar with President Trump's reaction, former President Trump, I should say, that he was deeply unhappy with that performance. He was borderline screaming, according to these two people who are aware of how the president responded to Bruce Castor as he was going forward, making that argument. Though, Wolf, we should point out, this is a legal team that was assembled just a little over a week ago after those other attorneys who were initially supposed to be the ones on the Senate floor making this argument left the team in what was described as a mutual decision at the time. And so they've only had a little over a week to prepare for this. And actually, they were supposed to go in reverse order with David Schoen. Actually, was supposed to make the first argument, but then they swapped, I'm told, at the last minute, which confused a lot of the president's allies. They did not think that was a strong opening argument. And then to have the first attorney admit that he believed the House impeachment managers did a good job. Also was confusing to a lot of people on the president's team. But yes, Trump was not happy with that performance. He was borderline screaming over what was going on as he was talking to people about this. So, of course, the question is what's going to happen after this? What is the outcome? The president still does believe he's going to be acquitted, but this is not a good showing for his legal team. He knows that. And so whether or not that changes over the next few days remains to be seen, how they approach this now going forward. But we do know that the president was not happy with what he saw there from his defense team.
So yeah, I mean, of course, Trump wasn't happy. They did a terrible job, but that's all on him. And you know what? I don't think at the end of the day, sadly, it's going to matter that much. Those guys could have got up there and read from a Wendy's menu and it wouldn't have mattered, because I don't think we're going to get 17 senators. And that is the sad state of our politics. Even after what even Republicans say was a terrible job by Trump's lawyers, they only got 6 votes. Only 6 Republicans voted to advance the arguments. So you can see kind of where we're at. So unfortunately, this whole spectacle is kind of going to be all for naught. But what I do think it will do is I think it'll shed a light just on how bad the events of the 6th were. I think it gives a little more time for everyone to actually see the timeline and then see the defense that these people are putting up and seeing just how bad it is. It kind of puts it all on display. You know, who knows what kind of ratings this thing will get, but it's definitely a lot of people are talking about it. And I think it really gives a good breakdown because the reporting's kind of been all over the place. You see a clip here, a clip there. You see people talking about, oh, it's Antifa or this, or you know what I mean? You see all the bullshit narratives and talking points going around. So this kind of really lays it out. Here's what we say happened. Here's what did happen. And here's why we think Trump should be impeached. And, you know, it kind of gives everybody their 2 cents. So hopefully we'll be able to win some people over, you know, from the Trump side from this. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But hey, we got to start somewhere, right? If you like this video, make sure you leave a comment down below and hit that like button, because it really, really helps me out with the algorithm. Also, if you like my content, make sure you turn on the bell for notifications, because just subscribing really doesn't do anything on YouTube anymore. Unfortunately, you got to turn on the bell for notifications or you're just not going to know when I upload a video. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitch, because I'm going to be doing a lot more live streams, and I'm moving over to Twitch at the end of the month only for live streams. Also, join the Discord. Links to everything are down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and peace. Special shout out to my progressive tier patrons. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, BumbleBunny420. Thank you, Gabby. And thank you, Amy. You guys are absolutely amazing. If you want to support me on Patreon, the link's down below. You can also subscribe to me on Twitch. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.